Aloha, I'm Marcia Joyner, and we are navigating the journey. And what a journey it is today. We are going to rewind the clock 400 years. How about that? And we are going to talk to a lovely, lovely lady. And just to be sure that you know, I am talking to my cousin, my first cousin, or that is, yeah, one of my first cousins. And she is in New York City, and she broadcasts on, she's going to have to tell me, but it's public radio in New Jersey. And this is Sheila Anderson. And we're going to talk about racism in America, because we come from a long line of Black people, mixed people in America. So, and then she's got the protest going. And when we first tuned in, it was 7 o'clock New York time, and they were banging outside for the first responders. So there's a lot to get to. So, Sheila, welcome.
Hello, 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 my dear cousin. How are you? Aloha.
I am so glad that you agreed to do this.
Well,
So,
thanks for asking me. And I've really been, since we had the conversation and since the invitation, I've been giving this a lot of thought. And you know I you were saying I'm on jazz radio. Yes, I'm on WBGO. It's in Newark Public radio station, a jazz station. And we've been talking about it, about how do we as a station um, sort of address the situation that we're in now, with the protests and all, and you know there's so much jazz was born out of
born it, yes.
protest. And when you fast forward to um, during the cabaret laws and how it impacted jazz in a negative way. Um, you had to have a cabaret card to perform. They wouldn't allow saxophones and certain instruments, so musicians couldn't play in clubs. And they could have you. They could take. They took away your cabaret card for the minor of infractions, and including Thelonious Monk. Excuse me, Thelonious Monk for one, Billie Holiday, and others. So you look at, and then going fast forward to the 60s and all the music that was, oh my goodness. Now all of a sudden I get a dry throat. And oh my, this is embarrassing. It's like, okay.
Okay.
And then you look at the 60s and the protest music that came out of the 60s, the Freedom Now suite, uh, Max Roach and Abby Lincoln, Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane wrote Alabama after the bombing of the girls in the church in Birmingham. And then you have songs like Fables for Faubus that Mingus wrote in reaction to Faubus, that racist governor in I think it was Georgia. Fast forward, it's like, you have the younger musicians writing about, Trayvon Martin, and writing songs in response to what they're experiencing racially. So it doesn't end, and
No.
nor does,
Well,
obviously.
but if you want to go back, um, the gospel songs were in response to slavery. You know,
Yes.
Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Well, she's singing, coming for to carry me home. That was instructions on where to go. All of our music has been tied to, from slavery up to today. And I've been glued to the television for a week now, which is something I don't usually do.
Yes.
But
Me too.
yeah,
Me too.
and I heard all kind of music across the country in response
Yes.
because um, Sweet Honey in the Rock, what's her name? Oh, why can't I think?
Bernice Reagan.
Bernice. Yes,
Hmm.
Bernice and we were part of SNCC 100 years ago, and she says that is the music it that um, comes from us. That's who we are as Black people. That is our very being. And so it expresses through all of the stages of our last 400 years of being here. And it's thank God we have that. And
Yeah.
it's forever. It lasts forever. Um,
I thought I had a conversation with some friends a couple years ago, and we were talking about that and how when slaves came from different countries. I mean, spoke different languages, had different religions, and all of that. And then they took away the drum because they had drums to communicate. But what they couldn't take away is our voice.
voice.
And I
Yes,
was saying when you um I can sit around with a bunch of Black people and we could have a nonverbal conversation just with
yes,
or grunts or and we know exactly.
exactly. Yes.
I mean,
And
we could have a whole conversation without saying a word. And
and
I
I was
think
you
music,
saw that.
song
You saw that
is
these last week across the country. You could see that no one had to tell them do this, do this. They knew instinctively, instinctively how to do that. Let me roll way back here just to give our audience. Incidentally, you can send in your questions, and there's a link down here for anybody that wants to participate. Now, for Sheila and me, if you go way back, one of our early grandfathers, at least as far as we can go, are you ready for this, audience? Was Confederate Civil War General John Bell Hood, which is why we have a maiden name Hood to this day. He sired two slave children, took them away from their mother, gave them to his sister so that she raised them as houseboys, which is how they got this great education. And like I said, to this day, we still have that name, Hood, John Bell Hood. Now, for anybody that's watching, don't get me wrong. Uh, this is not intended to be racist, and I don't mind that we have a white general on the line. But why did we have to have the stupid one? I mean, all the men in the world. He's a general, and he loses his whole tribe. Why? You know. And then they name the fort after him. You know. Oh my
right.
God. It's like here. Why? Why?
Right. You know,
And, then we had it.
we are the American story, the Black American history.
And then
We are living history. Absolutely.
we
Um,
have a grandmother, one of the many great great grandmothers, who was Native American, and she was taken in by the Hoods. By this time, they have their own families, and to take her off of the Trail of Tears. And if you look at the um, Ancestry.com, she has an American name. But Uncle Ernest, Little Dolly's father, Uncle Ernest, used to tell me stories about her. And he said, oh, he was crazy about his grandmother because she had hiding places. And little children love hiding places. It was only maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I discovered what that meant. And when they took her off the Trail of Tears, the bounty hunters were looked for her, so that the family, the Hoods, had created hiding places for her. And needless to say, Uncle Ernest was thrilled because little children like hiding places. And so when you look at all of these things, and Andrew Jackson was a real ass to create bounty hunters and to move all those Native Americans off the land that he wanted. When you look at
Yeah.
where we've come and you feel it inside, there is still a hurt. There's nothing we can say, nothing we can do. And that is why you see all of those people all over the world protesting, because there's a hole. There's a hole
Yes.
there.
Yes. And the thing is, I've been talking race, all my life,
Oh, yes,
and having gone to, well, I went to boarding school and Catholic school and private school. And, so I went to school with mostly whites. And, there was always the, question or assumptions, like, I was not on scholar. I wasn't. My parents had my parents had to pay, so I didn't have to do work study and all that. So it's like, so then I find out my father's a lawyer, my mother's a teacher. It's like, well, I don't come from the ghetto, because they didn't really understand. So you hear things like, I hear things like, oh, you're the whitest Black person I know, and all that ignorant stuff. So I've had to have these conversations, for so long. But when white people say, well, I'm not racist, and my people weren't slave owners and all that, so it doesn't matter, because it's the DNA. It just gets passed down and passed down and passed down. And when you think about America, when it started, it was some WASPs, some white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, who pretty much said, look, this is for us. If you couldn't vote if you didn't own land, look
right.
at how they come up with the senators. And the reason why there's two in each state, they weren't even elected, they were
No,
appointed.
they weren't elected, they were appointed. That was an
Yes.
afterthought. Yeah.
And they
And then you could
included, see,
buy it if you had wealth. You bought yourself a
right,
senator. Yeah.
right. And so you had slaves counted as property, because as people, three-fifths of a person, because the number of senators were based on, because there were fewer people than cattle in, like, Montana.
Yeah.
So they said, well, that's not going to work. So let's count the slaves. And then, therefore, that's how the population. So that's why somebody like, South Dakota has two senators, and California has two senators. It doesn't make
Yes.
any
It
sense
doesn't
in
make any
modern
sense
day,
at all.
but it wasn't,
No.
it wasn't meant for
It
everyone to
wasn't
vote
meant to, no, it wasn't meant to no,
and
no,
then when you have the Irish come over, they were Shanty Irish. Then the Italians come over, and they're the Wops, and the Chinese are the Chinks. And then all of a sudden, all these people coming over here, ethnics. They were ethnics and looked down on. But then when when they saw that these ethnics were, like, banding together with Black folks, they said, "Oh, wait a minute, now this ain't gonna work."
well, that,
So y'all gonna be white, and they're gonna be Black, and we're gonna take the Irish, and we're going to make them the cops. They're gonna be the ones who were the slave catchers. It's a system. This is what racism is. It is a system that is built to keep people subjugated.
and
It's not,
separate.
and
Yeah,
so then
separate.
right, so people don't understand, and everyone throws around the word racist. Oh, you're racist, or you're a reverse racism. That doesn't even exist. You can be a bigot, you can be prejudiced, but we can't be. What is reverse racism? We're not in
I
control of the
don't know.
system.
I
If
don't
we
know.
were, those cops wouldn't be killing Black folks every week. If we
All
were,
over, yes.
they're there to keep the system
They
intact, which
yes.
is to
And
keep the minorities, the Black folks down, and keep the
it's
white
part
folks up.
of, it's built into the system, you
Yes,
know. The
yes.
mayor,
It's no
you
different
elect
from
the mayor,
apartheid.
yeah, you elect the mayor, and the police department is under the mayor most of the
Right.
time anyway. In Hawaii, in Hawaii, when it became a state, they created the police department and the Board of Water Supply were not under the mayor because they thought, well, it's written that they thought, oh, well, if there's a rogue mayor, they can turn off the water and turn out the police. So each of them
Wow.
are separate, but, and they have a commission, but the mayor still gets to put his hands in the till, you know, they
Wow.
get to play the game. Now, the idea of creating them separate was a great idea, but after, you know, 100 years, that it's kind of morphed into something else. But the idea was good.
Yeah. Well, when you look at, I just found out the other day that there are 38,000 cops in New York,
Yes.
the largest in the country. I didn't realize the 38,000, but the what people are really reacting to a couple of things that the police has morphed into. That they given police cops, they're making cops military, and the union is very strong. That's why it's hard to convict these cops when they're killing folks. There's all, they get part of the funding, that could be going to communities, but they get funding, federal funding, state funding, for what? To buy more military tanks. And I mean, they're dressed like they're literally going to war. No more, men and women in blue. They're in, black and damn near khakis. And that
Yes.
is again part of the system that needs to be corrected. It needs to be adjusted or corrected or thrown out. Make them
Yeah.
make them go back to walking the beat
The blue
and
shirt gang, as they are called.
yes, yes.
Yeah, the blue shirt gang. And uh, that it is the system. Uh, you know, I hate to say that so and so is a racist or so and so, other than the orange man in the White House. I don't mind saying that one's racist. But anyway, somebody's in trouble. The helicopter's right overhead, and we're
Ah,
only half a mile from the ocean. So when you hear the helicopter
oh,
like that, somebody's in trouble out
oh,
there. That's too bad. It's a beautiful day, so it's a great day to be out.
oh.
Uh, what was I getting ready to tell you? I don't know.
You're
When
talking
it
about
happens to old folks, they lose it.
no, you're talking about the system and
Yes,
and how it's basically this is the system is what keeps them, you know,
yes.
getting stronger. I mean, it's true. And the thing I'll never forget when De Blasio first got elected, and he had made a comment because he has biracial children, and that I forgot what the incident was, but a black person either gotten beaten or killed. Something happened, and he said how he has to give a talk to his son, about how to behave, like when you black fathers give to their black sons, even though the Blasio is white. And the reason why I mention it is because when he was inaugurated, the police turned their backs on him
Oh,
because they
wow.
were so upset that he would say something like that about them, which is basically, yeah, the cops are, beating up, black guys for no black kids for no reason. And they literally turned their back on him. I mean, that was unbelievable, unbelievable. So he's had a problem with the cops from the very beginning, and the union is so strong. I mean, the rumor is people say, well, they probably threatened him. Actually, his daughter was arrested on Saturday night, at the protest. But it's the culture. It's the culture, and people have finally. I mean, there have been protests after every. Amadou Diallo. There was a protest. Abner Louima, Eric Garner, a protest. This is New York City. I mean,
Yeah.
but nothing was ever done, really. I mean, until now. So I think it's just between the pandemic and the murder of George. It's like a
George.
perfect
Yeah.
storm, and now everybody's had enough. It's like
And
we have to
yeah,
do, and then of course the orange one, as you say, perpetuating more violence and more. You know, when he said to I forgot which police force, oh yeah, I want to see more of that. Rough them up, rough them
yeah.
up. This throw them in the car. So he's basically telling them to the cops, yeah, go ahead,
Well,
rough
when
them
he,
up, make it hurt.
yeah, one of his first uh, town hall or whatever those rallies are he has, and the chief of police from Minneapolis was one of the speakers, and he was thrilled to death. Do it, do
So it
it.
was
Yeah,
Minneapolis. Okay, I
uh,
thought it was, that's what I thought.
yeah. I think he's been replaced, but the point is that
Well,
whole
I
thing.
think it was recent. I think it was after the
It was
murder
fairly recent.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, because they also found him, you know, in like Nazi garb or something like that at one of
Yes.
Trump's
Mhm.
rallies or something like that. So, you know, he's gone. But look at how long it took. And it took something like this to make, so the fact that, and even when you think about the cop who, well, they all four of them are now arrested, but the main one, Chevin or Chauvin, however you say his name, he had already had um, citations against him. He had already, for years, they
Years.
knew,
Yes.
and they let him stay on the force. And the guy, Tu Tao, whatever, I think that's his name, he too was suspended for like 2 years because of, I think, some civil suits against him. But they let them stay. They let these people stay. The one, I think Abner Louima, or one of them, one of the cops that roughed him up, he had also had citations
Yeah. But
against
now
for this. So civil.
I think
I'm
the
just saying they
difference,
allowed them.
yeah, I think the difference in what happened last Memorial Day and any other day is this magic little thing that everybody has in their pocket. This little thing called a magic, this phone, and everybody was
Yes,
out
but
taking pictures,
right,
and that is why that made a difference that the whole world got to see. You all of those names that you mentioned, nobody got to see, so the
well,
police could say,
Eric
"Oh, we
Gardner,
did."
they did. They
They did.
did. Eric
They did.
Gardner, that was the one, I Can't Breathe, you know, in
Yes.
Staten
No, we
Island,
did watch
the one
that
that
one.
was
Yeah.
selling tickets. But check this out. The guy who took the video, he's in jail. They
Of course.
arrested him. They
Of
arrested
course.
him for something, and he's in jail for 4 years. And he's the one that took the video.
Yes. Yes.
And so they that's why people were worried about the young lady that took the
I'm still worried
this,
about her.
because you know cops will retaliate.
Yes.
So
It'll
it's,
come and she won't even know what happened. There's a lot of people that took pictures. So I heard an interview with
yes.
one man, and he took some pictures, and then he said he stopped because he was in a car. He stopped and went in another direction because he was afraid for himself that he had this ammunition, this, and then he had to drive somewhere else because he was afraid for himself.
But you know the thing that really blows my mind is how the fact that not only the young lady but other people videotaping, and how casual they were to just continue to
He was
kill him,
posing. Yeah.
stand there, and as though, because the confidence and the arrogance that nothing would happen to them. That's the mentality. Everyone says, oh, you know, they're not all bad cops, and you know there's some, you know, bad apples. Well, the bad apples are ruining the whole force because again it comes from the top. They felt very comfortable sitting there just killing the
and
guy, and it was okay. Yeah,
and
okay,
it's okay.
it's kind of like I dare you, videotape
Yeah.
me, nothing's gonna happen to me.
And it's the whole system. The original prosecutor came down with some, oh, well, we need more evidence. And then the, what do you call it? When they autopsy, even that was screwy, that there was no evidence in the original autopsy. And so the
Yeah.
whole thing comes together and
Yeah.
it
Well,
makes them hurt.
look at Aubrey in Georgia, the one who was jogging and shot.
Right.
The
Mhm.
original prosecutor was friends with the guy apparently. So it's like, but again, if there hadn't, the thing is about that one, which is interesting, is there hadn't the video. The lawyer for the guy that took the video put the video out because he thought it was going to prove the case that um, they had not done anything wrong by shooting them, by
Yeah.
shooting him. Like, so if we hadn't seen that video, we wouldn't have known. And but these are the guy that took the video may or may not been in cahoots with these guys, but yet to think now that's arrogance. It's like, well, look, here's the video. He he was running because he was a thief, and so we killed him because he.
Yes, certainly.
I
A
you know
thief in an
racism
empty
is a
house.
dis-
In an empty
racism is
house, right?
racism
Yeah.
is a disease. I personally think that they were looking to have some fun that day, just like they lynching folks from trees back in the day. And they said, "Oh well, we see that this there goes somebody black. Let's
Yeah. My
because that was
mother, yeah,
premeditated."
my mother was in the 30s and in Fisk University in Tennessee. And she says that every weekend there was a lynching just outside of town, and it was a festive occasion every weekend. And that was Nashville in the 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now
And
we're down to 2 minutes. So
really,
yes, fast, right?
my goodness, what? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we ought to do it again. And
Okay.
but let's talk about in these last 2 minutes where do we go from here? I listened to Obama, who was beautiful as always. But where do we go from here? What can we look forward to? What can we do? Now, for most of us, there's an election. Well, all of us in the United States, there's an election. But now for me, I think we need to look all the way down the ballot. Okay, so we got two people at the top. But if we don't elect the sheriff and
Yes.
the the mayor and the city council and the dog catchers and all the way down, we are we're not going to make change. So give me your
Right.
thoughts this last minute.
Well, I think I've been watching a lot of young people talking, and I think we have to bring back social engagement, and because I knew when I was born there were two things I had to do in life. I had to vote and I had to go to college. That I
Right.
knew that I was going to
Yeah, well,
college.
I
I
mean
had to vote.
that was
Right.
just
Right.
that was a thing you just knew because your parents had done it.
Yes, and it was priority. And I think now people need to understand. You're right. It's not just the top; it's down ballot. Oh my goodness! So that's what we have to do: is engage young people into the process again. Oh my
Ooh,
goodness!
that's not good. Yeah,
I know.
and like speaking of down ballots, I couldn't resist this one. Uh, Congressman Stephen, what's his name, King,
Oh
got to
yes,
wrap himself up in his white sheet and go to bed knowing he lost.
I was so happy. Everybody's happy about that. So you know what? One at a time. Knock them down one at a time.
One
So
at a
yes,
time. Yeah,
that was a good one. So
that was
definitely
a good
get
one.
engaged. We got to get
Yes. Yeah.
engaged and join the NAACP and these other organizations.
Oh, the NAACP has a call coming up in a half hour. And
Okay.
if you can get onto the call, it's in a half hour. Uh,
Okay.
and
Absolutely.
yeah,
So that's what I think going forward. I mean, I think people are pretty much awake now, especially young people say, well, we don't have to take this anymore. I mean, they're like, we're going to get involved. I think now that it's kind of like the 60s again. Young folks are just like, okay, we don't have to take this anymore. We're going to get engaged and we're going to learn and we're going to march and we're going to run for office. And I think that it'll be a better it'll be a better world, at least for maybe another 30 years. So, but I'm trying to be positive, trying to be positive. But I think I am actually hopeful. These young folks are really on the ball. So
Yeah, and what I was
yeah,
impressed with. Now, I talked to a friend yesterday, and we were 15 when we started out in this
me
march,
too.
this movement, and um, we were so glad to see, because at times we felt like we were alone, and to see this movement of people of all colors, all races,
Yes,
to be out there,
yes,
and around the world, the
yep,
the support around the world,
yep.
and I
They
was just,
everybody sees how messed up America is. It's like,
mhm,
oh my God, yeah, oh totally. It was heartwarming. So
it was.
I'm feeling hopeful, and going to go back to being glued to my TV for another day or so, and then I have to get to work.
Well, my husband is a Black man, and we have 5 Black sons and 4 boys, men, who are grandsons, and now one great grandson. And it's scary watching it.
Yeah,
Now, of course, being cut in this cocoon here, uh, I didn't see all of going on in America. But when this happened, I thought of all of those men, all of my children and grandchildren, and that's scary
yeah.
because only one, okay, one lives here, and all the rest of them are on the mainland, and that really scared me to death.
And I think that's how our grandparents felt, in Indiana, wondering if their sons or even daughters would come back alive. Would they
Yes.
get snatched up? Would they be
Now,
lynched?
okay, and just to close, speaking of which, my father, your uncle, was murdered in March 1964 on the eastern shore of Maryland by a white sheriff. And uh, it was hard for me to deal with it. And I still have, watching this, all of that came up again. Um, and of course, nothing happened.
Of course.
Nothing happened. And they kept and I know the sheriff did it because the sheriff kept the body. And when they finally found him, it was all deteriorated. I mean, and
Oh
the
my
sheriff
God.
knew him. And then when he couldn't hide any longer, when the insurance company and everybody else came looking for him, that's when he finally surrendered. But nothing happened.
Wow.
Nothing.
That's sad. It's sad. It's
It
sad, but
is.
yeah, it's sad. Okay.
All right,
Oh,
sweetheart. They're telling me I gotta stop.
okay.
So
All right. Thank you. Love
aloha.
you.
Love you,
Aloha.
darling.